10. Pool Patrol Paula. A teenager and his friends were minding their business at a local pool in Summerville, South Carolina in 2018, when a woman approached them and began harassing them. They later said that the antagonist, identified as 38-year-old Stephanie Sebi Strempel, shouted racial slurs at them and told them they didn't belong at the pool. She allegedly followed the group to the exit and hit one of the young men twice in the face. Disturbing footage captured by one teen shows the suspect swinging at the camera, threatening to dial 911 and telling the group to leave. The victim who shared the video told police that he and his friends were being respectful when Sebi Strempel started bothering them. It was the latest in a disturbing trend of a handful of white people harassing law-abiding people of color in public places, earning her the nickname Pool Patrol Paula. When detectives went to arrest Sebi Strempel on a warrant for third-degree assault, she reportedly pushed one of them into a wall and bit another, earning her a handful of additional charges. She pleaded guilty to assault and battery and was ordered to pay a $1,000 fine. 9. Heather Kennedy. When 69-year-old James Clark returned to his Port Charlotte, Florida home last year after a doctor's appointment, he spotted some clothing he didn't recognize on his porch. He then found a naked woman swimming in his pool and dialed 911. The skinny dipper, later identified as 42-year-old Heather Kennedy, reportedly refused to tell police her name or why she was there. She initially refused to get out of the water and get dressed and told law enforcement to leave her alone, but they weren't about to do that. When Kennedy finally exited the pool, police struggled to handcuff her. She was charged with trespassing and resisting an officer without violence. Court records show that the woman lived roughly 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers from Clark's home, where she was found bathing in the buff. Her reasons for being there are still a mystery. Kennedy pleaded no contest to the charges. She was sentenced to time served and ordered to pay a $320 fine. Just days after being released from custody for the skinny dip, Kennedy was arrested for breaking into a truck. Police charged her with burglary, theft, and criminal mischief counts. She was also charged with possession of drug paraphernalia and bringing smuggled goods into a correctional facility. Kennedy is being held in the Charlotte County Jail in Punta Gorda awaiting trial. 8. Crocodile attacks couple. An image of a woman lounging in the pool on a crocodile floating device is nothing like actually sharing the water with a live one. A couple learned this during a late-night swim at a resort in Kariba, Zimbabwe, where they found themselves face-to-face with an enormous crocodile. They were relaxing in the pool when the reptile jumped into the water. The man got out of the pool and ran away while the crocodile cornered the woman. A struggle ensued between the two until the man returned and distracted the croc long enough for the woman to get out of the water. Luckily, she escaped with only minor injuries, including some bite marks. The shocking encounter was captured on surveillance footage and went viral after it appeared on YouTube in 2016. The video uploader says the crocodile shadowed and attacked them in a private residential swimming pool. He explains the drought has caused Lake Kariba water levels to drop hazardously low, and the natural ecosystem is being immensely affected. He said the many fish are also being netted because of the lack of government control and funding. Because of this problem, it causes the crocodiles to search in other places, and this could be the reason for this particular juvenile Nile croc showing up at the pool. 7. A dangerous leak. 9 swimmers and their coaches were practicing at the Glen Oaks Country Club in Louisville, Kentucky recently when they got sick and ended up in a hospital. It's believed that there was a buildup of chlorine and muriatic acid, chemicals that are normally used in pools, but in dangerous large amounts. They were released into the water during the practice when maintenance personnel went to flush the lines. The country club had recently failed an inspection because of high chlorine content, but had resolved whatever the issue was, or so it seemed, and passed a follow-up inspection a few days later. Public health official Nick Hart told Wave News that his department sees the problem once or twice every year, but that it usually happens in a pump room rather than an actual pool. He said that there are facilities that routinely fail their inspections, and that there are more issues than he'd like to admit. Kentucky Poison Control Center Director Dr. Ashley Webb told the news outlet that dangerous chlorine exposure is common during this time of year when people are just opening up their pools. She said that the symptoms of exposure are pretty obvious and include respiratory issues like trouble breathing, a burning sensation in the nose, as well as a tearing and burning of the eyes. According to Dr. Webb, symptoms can have a delayed onset, and these are the cases that medical experts worry the most about because they can cause lung damage. In a Facebook post, the country club advised any swimmers from that day to wash their hair, flush their eyes, and go to hospital if they began coughing or experienced any other symptoms. 6. Unfriendly competition. London-based sports psychiatrist Dr. Josie Perry was swimming laps at a local pool one morning last year when someone grabbed her by the feet while she was underwater. She later said that she couldn't surface to breathe, sending her into a panic as her attacker held her under. During the ordeal, she also lost the float she uses for swimming because of a spinal disability. Finally, Dr. Perry was allowed to surface. She was yelled at by a man who she'd been overtaking in laps shortly before the encounter. He called her ridiculous, said that he could swim faster than her, and challenged her to a race. Perry reported the incident to staff members and then to the police. She voiced her frustrations in a viral tweet, stating, "Lifeguard's lovely, but of course it's me that has to leave as I can't risk swimming with an aggressive man far stronger than I." The unprovoked attack left her feeling fearful of returning to the pool, worried that something like this might happen again. Despite confiding in those she knew could help her work through the emotional aftermath, Perry said she couldn't sleep thinking about the attack. Speaking with Yahoo News, she explained that these types of gender-based encounters, unfortunately, aren't rare, and that her female athlete friends have reported being shamed and harassed by men for outperforming them in running, cycling, swimming, and other sports. Perry called for a no-tolerance approach to this unacceptable treatment, hoping it might eventually stop. 5. McGregor TIOTI. During a swim at a public pool at the Gore Multi-Sports Complex in New Zealand last year, 44-year-old McGregor TIOTI failed to notice a lifeguard's attempts to tell him to switch lanes. She approached the man and tapped him lightly on the head, which is apparently a common technique for getting a swimmer's attention. But TUME was less than pleased with it, which he made clear when he exited the pool and confronted the lifeguard before tackling her to the ground. He then dragged her into a nearby pool and held her head underwater for several seconds, only letting up after being yelled at by witnesses. The victim later said that she didn't have time to hold her breath before she was pushed under and held down by the man's weight, and that she thought she was going to die. TUME was charged with threatening to kill, impeding breathing, behaving threateningly, and injuring with intent. He pleaded guilty and apologized in court, and was sentenced to 10.5 months of house arrest, followed by 6 months of probation. A spokesperson for the Gore District Council, which runs the pool, said that it was the most disturbing incident he'd witnessed in nearly 30 years of service. 4. Kayla May. After being diagnosed with epilepsy, doctors warned 19-year-old Kayla May not to swim alone in case she had a seizure, because doing so could prove deadly. But she loved being in the water and just couldn't resist. Her brother came home one afternoon recently and went out to the family's backyard in Darwin, Australia, where he found Kayla floating face down in the water. He began screaming for help, and their mother rushed outside. They attempted to revive the young woman while they waited for help to arrive, but it was too late to save her. Kayla's father, who was working hours away in a mine, couldn't get a charter flight, so a neighbor drove 5 hours to pick him up and brought him back to Darwin. Her family is left heartbroken over the unexpected loss, which some argue would have been prevented if she'd just taken the doctor's advice to avoid swimming solo. But the teen's grandmother, Judy, took a more sympathetic tone, telling the Daily Mail, "How do you deny someone their freedom when they love something so much?" Considering the tragedy, Kayla's loved ones are calling on young girls in their area to show kindness toward one another. 3. HAZMAT incident at the Hampton. Earlier this year, police in Marysville, Ohio, received a call about a toddler who was unconscious in the pool area of a Hampton Inn hotel. When they got there, 9 other poolgoers complained of dizziness and a burning sensation in their throats. 13 people were taken to the hospital, 7 of whom were in critical condition. It was determined that they were suffering from the effects of a carbon monoxide leak coming from an undetermined source. Emergency responders detected life-threatening concentrations of the gas near the hotel's pool, which clarified that the visitors were all lucky to be alive. Authorities said the building was evacuated, and City Fire Chief Riley said any potential sources of carbon monoxide had been cut off. The next day, he said he had no immediate update on the investigation. A representative of the Hampton Inn Marysville said hotel staff were fully cooperating with the local authorities as they investigate this incident. Carbon monoxide is especially dangerous because it's odorless. Exposure can be fatal and can also have lasting effects, including neurological damage, vision problems, and memory loss. Every year, an estimated 400 people die in the US from carbon monoxide poisoning, and thousands more are hospitalized. 2. An uninvited guest. Ramon and Maria Crego were taking their dogs for an after-dinner walk outside their home in the Florida Keys last year when they noticed some activity in their pool. A crocodile had gotten into their backyard and entered the water, helping itself to a relaxing evening swim. Speaking with USA Today after the incident, Ramon said that he told his wife to take their small dogs inside and call the Fish and Wildlife Commission, FWC, while he dealt with the situation at hand. Neighbors overheard Maria telling the operator that there was an emergency happening in their pool. They got curious and walked next door to see what was going on, and were amused but kept a safe distance. Ramon later said that the crocodile really seemed to enjoy the couple's pool and it didn't want to leave. Wildlife officials responded quickly, but it took them some time to determine exactly what to do about the unwelcome guest. After consulting with their supervisor, they shooed the reptile back into a nearby bay. In Florida, most stories about disruptive gigantic reptiles are about alligators, but the state's southern coastal regions are also home to American crocodiles. The species is known for being elusive and typically avoids humans, but encounters happen, as Crego's experience shows. The FWC reported that there are around 7 unprovoked crocodile attacks on humans every year in the state, but that number is growing. But the couple was smart enough not to take their chances. 1. Bloomberg's abandoned pool. In January 2020, shortly before the COVID-19 pandemic gripped the nation, New York City's Parks Department closed the Flushing Meadows Corona Park Aquatic Center for emergency repairs. Its closure was prolonged by life in lockdown, and it still hasn't been reopened because chunks of concrete are falling from the ceiling into the emptied-out pool. The pool is now covered in netting and has sat unused for over 2 years. It's part of a $67 million recreational center that Michael Bloomberg, Rudy Giuliani, and other Big Apple bigwigs opened in 2008 in a bid to bring the Olympic Games to the area. At the time, the building's concrete cable-supported roof was praised as highly efficient and resistant to corrosion. But that proved not to be the case, and now every time it rains, water leaks into the building from above, staining the walls and floor. The Parks Department says that there are plans to build a new roof, but it hasn't happened yet. The empty pool continues to languish, and the building is kept locked while a dozen or so security guards and recreational employees still report to work every day. A staff member told reporters from the city that people occasionally show up hoping the pool's been reopened, only to be met with continued disappointment. Officials have failed to explain why construction is so delayed, while nearby residents are forced to live without a community pool. Park spokesperson Megan Lalor claimed it remains closed because no work can be done if it's open, but the employees who get paid to sit in an empty building each day told the city that there's no work being done. Union representative Joe Puleo, who represents some workers at the property, described the building as a waste of taxpayer dollars and said that it looks like it should be condemned. And in a city where every square inch of space comes with a price tag, it's hard not to agree that the facility is an enormous waste and a letdown to the public. Thanks for watching. Would you rather catch a fellow swimmer going to the bathroom near you in a public pool, or realize a huge crocodile was heading toward the pool? Let me know in the comments below.